Good morning everybody and welcome to sunny Lithgow, which isn't because it's overcast, but that's beside the point. So a little bit different, we're going to have a look at the steering on a Model T. There's the steering wheel. This is the original Fordite wheel, my wooden one sitting over the side over there. So this is the steering box. And Henry absolutely loved epicyclic gears, so it's a tiny little epicyclic gearbox. And you have your 3 planets traveling around the sun, which is on the steering wheel, and then that turns within that and the shaft goes straight down to the wheels and just pivots left and right at the bottom. So it's as simple as anything. These later ones have a slightly different gearing to the early ones. So I'll put the wheel back on and we'll have a bit more of a look. Okay, now what we're going to do is John, my beautiful assistant, is down there and he's going to push the wheels, and you can see then hopefully here the way the little epicyclic gears will slowly move themselves around. Now there's a lot of grease in there, I've cleaned some of it up, but yes, so that's how it's a very simple system, but extremely good. So those little gears just run around. Now this is exactly the same as the gearbox, but the difference with the gearbox is that you're actually clamping this outer one and stopping that turning. In this case that's clamped so that the ratio and what's moving is different. Apart from that, it's beyond my knowledge scope, so that's as far as I'll take with it. Somebody else can explain epicyclic. Anyway, in a minute we'll get on to something else. Okay, next part of this video is a little bit more complex, and I'm going to give a little warning right now. Don't ask us the exact detail of how the epicyclic gearbox works, because both John and I have just been standing here and honestly I think we've just aged 5 years trying to nut it out. We can show you the various parts which we're about to do, and give you an idea of what each of those parts does, but to how the epicyclic, how they transfer the power through the epicyclic, a little bit trickier, particularly reverse. That's where our head started to blow up. Anyway, we'll start on the left here, so my left. The first part we've got is a mess of, these are the wound portion of the coil that's built into the gearbox and flywheel. So this portion with all its little windings are stationary. They're bolted to the back of the motor, the block, and the other half of it is the flywheel with all the U-shaped magnets around the outside. Now that bit spins, creating an electric current. There is a pickup that sits right at the top. I can't see where it is on this one. Just here? Oh, just there, that's it there. Yeah, so there is a pickup and there's a little wire connected at the top of the gearbox. I don't know, you can see it on mine to show you carefully. On the earlier cars it's a lot more evident. Mine's tucked under the scuttle, so it's a bit tricky. Anyway, we won't worry about that one. So you've got all your magnets there spinning around, creating a current in your wound coils, and these magnets also do the other job of throwing the oil all over the place. So effectively, for want of a better term, they're your oil pump, as close as you get. Now we're getting into the voodoo side of it. I'm going to move this out of the way. This poor old windings are falling apart. Ugh. This side of it. Okay, so, okay, John, yeah, there you go. He holds, there he goes. So the side John's got where the magnet's on, that's the engine on that side. The gearbox sits on this side, and we have these triple gears. And you can see why they're called triple gears. There's 3 of them. Now this is the voodoo portion, because this is the bit that transmits the drive to the gearbox, which is this section here. I'll move that over a bit. So that actually just goes on there. It won't go, these are all rusted and they need to be cleaned up, but that gives you an idea. So you've got your reverse band, you've got your low gear band, and you've got your brake band, and that is literally your foot brake. And that portion there mates up with the triple gears, and that's the voodoo portion that we're ignoring at the moment. And go for it. So we're going to jump now from this 3. That's your, as I said, so the interior of the brake band actually is your high speed, and that's a multi-disc clutch, which I have right here. So this portion is that one there. That's all it is. So it's just a separate piece we've got at the moment. And in here, these are all individual we take the drive out of the middle. So that's the part that is driven, and that goes through to your rear axle. And here are a whole series of metal discs, and you have both driven and driving discs, one each, and they vary, one of each of the way across, and they are they're held into place. This bolts on the end. I'm sorry, this is a bit of a mess of a video. It's a bit tricky to do it, and these are all filthy old second-hand parts I've got. So they all bolt, that bolts on there. Your rear axle is connected into here, and this spring pushes onto all those discs and holds them together to transmit your drive. So I've explained before that when you pull your handbrake back to the center position, the vertical position, you are holding your discs apart. You're engaging neutral, or as much as you can. So what you're actually doing is on this ring here, you're pulling back on that, which I can't do. That spring's quite under a lot of tension, and then that releases the pressure between each of these discs. Now, yesterday when I was starting the car, I talked about the fact that the thick oil would sit between each of these discs and could actually transmit your drive. So it's not an issue we actually have much with anymore. One of the tricks they used to get around it was by jacking up the rear wheel. So as you can see, the different size. So you've got, we put that back into spot. So you've got one here, that is the driven one, and that fits on. This is tricky to do one-handed, isn't it? God help us, you need more. So that fits in there, and then the next disc, as you can see, keys into the outside. And it's made up like Sara Lee pastry, except it's not folded, but it's layer upon layer. And you've just got those all the way, and yeah, this is tricky doing single-handed, but we'll get there. And and you build it up the whole way through like that. So the next one drives the inside. And there's a whole layer, and again, I should have done a bit more research. I can't remember exactly how many there are of them. And my beautiful offsider there can't either. I have, one of the things they do, I'm jumping a little bit, is that these discs can be replaced with Turbo 400 automatic gearbox discs, which are pretty much the same. And funny enough, this whole gearbox is essentially a 2-speed automatic gearbox, but without the automatic portion. No hydraulic control. It's all done with your feet. So my car actually has these Turbo 400s, which have, instead of these 6 driving splines, has 72 of them, so it transmits a lot smoother drive. You getting back to this spring, as I said, that's all bolts on there, and you've got this rather large helicoil spring. There's another one, and they push on these fingers, which then engages all of those discs. We're just starting to get a couple of sprinkles of rain, and I'm doing this outside now. Just as a little bit of a contrast, I have another brake band. Yeah, we'll look at these two. So these are the brake bands, and you've got 3 of these, one for each. And when you push your pedals, what you're doing is simply pulling that together and stopping the movement of that brake band. Now, earlier when I showed you the steering box, I actually stupidly said that with the gearbox, you're clamping that outer portion, and in this one it's held flat, and that's correct. With the steering box, it does not move at all, whereas in the normal position, these all spin until you actually physically stop either your reverse, your low gear, or of course you use your foot brake. So you've got 3 of those. In the 2627, you've got this much larger brake band. So here's a comparison between the two. If you can see the difference there, this is quite a good quarter of a size bigger. So this brake drum is larger, and this brake band obviously is larger for it as well, and it does the same thing. These actually also have removable ears. These earlier ones, the ears do not come off, so you have to actually take the cover off the gearbox to then change them, whereas the removable ears, you can pull them out through the inspection cover on the top. I think we might leave it there for the moment, and we'll see how this worked out. Thank you.